We are in Fortnite Battle Royale Season 5 Chapter 2. We've been through a lot of things up to this point, but some people don't know that there is a hidden story in Fortnite behind the current events in the island. All of events are related, and if we connect them, we will figure out the hidden story in this game. And that's what I am going to talk about today. The entire Fortnite story from the beginning until now. If you want to know all of this, stay until the end of the video. Hey yo, what's up guys? Before beginning, I want to clear out that what I'm going to talk in this video is my theory of what happened in Fortnite and what the hidden story is. There are many things which Fortnite didn't tell us, and that's why I fill up some parts where I think it happened in the story timeline in order to make sense to this story. Could this video reach 1000 likes? Let's see it. Leave your like right now. I recommend you to bring snacks before starting, because this video is too long because it's similar to a Fortnite movie. Moreover, I invite you to subscribe and activate the bell, as I will draw 5000 V-Bucks among my subscribers. To participate, go to the link in the description below the video. If you subscribe, you can enjoy with all Fortnite stories and theories, and you can know all the new secrets in the game. Also, if you want to support me, you can use my code JorgeIsaac115 on Fortnite item shop before doing your purchases, and so you will help Wowzel's agents. It all began with the main character in the story, the Fortnite Battle Royale island. Every day the island population were facing each other to survive in this world. Many of them began equipping themselves with armor to be prepared to the battle, until one day many meteorites impacted to the island, whose name are Athena. Many places were affected, some were tilted towers, the prison and more, but the most affected place was Dusty Depot, where the largest meteorite impacted. Quickly, the island's governmental entities arrived and settled around the largest meteor to investigate, because there was something weird with it. On the other hand, some actors were filming a romantic movie when the meteorite impacted, but the meteor didn't stop the movie production. Even this incident was helpful in changing the course of the film, becoming superheroes story film. They began to set different scenarios around the island, like a hero's mansion, villain lair with a fake rocket. Suddenly, a capsule inside the largest meteorite opened and someone came out of there. This person was nothing more and nothing less than the Visitor, who arrived our island from other planet. For some strange reason, he realized that there was an installed rocket in a villain lair, and he decided to use it for his unknown plane. But this rocket wasn't working, it's just an ornament for the movie. So he decided to use hop rocks which came from the same meteors in which he arrived. The Visitor already knew the strange rocks and knew they were useful for the rocket to work. So he brought them to the villain lair, built the rocket and set a countdown. When it reached 0, the Visitor got into the rocket and took off. The people in the island didn't understand what was happening. Who was this strange being that was trying to destroy our world, taking off the rocket? In the highest point, the rocket emitted a message which said that no one understood what it meant. Suddenly, the rocket sped off against Tilted Tower and disappeared. Fewer seconds, it appeared on the other side of the island. Then it teleported again. Everyone was confused. No one had idea what the Visitor was plotting. Could it be that he was trying to destroy some part of the map? Finally, the rocket reappeared in Loot Lake and crashed into the the sky, leaving behind a massive rift. After that, more rifts started to appear around the island, which caused the different objects disappeared. The burger head was one of them. Surprisingly, it appeared in the desert of California in the real life. It appeared in our world. Those objects not only disappeared, but also were teleported to another dimension. This is how different tourists began to visit this giant burger. One of those days, a young artist came up with his golf cart and made a graffiti on it that day his life would change completely. He was teleported to the Fortnite world, and with him many real-life objects from different times were teletransported to the dimension of this video game. His name is Rift, and as soon as he arrived in this world of Athena, he joined to a group of friends. Among them was Bright Bomber, with whom he would soon begin a love relationship. Later, the rift in the sky gradually began to decrease in size, but before disappearing, it launched an intense lightning bolt that gave rise to the mysterious cube named Kevin. No one knew what the cube was, neither what its purposes were. It began to move around the island, leaving stranger signs underground, until finally he had it in Loot Lake, as if it drowned by a magnet. The cube melted into Loot Lake apparently, but shortly after it made the Loot Lake island rise through the air and spin around the Fortnite island, going through again some runes that the cube Kevin had left before reaching the water. Apparently, the floating island along with the cube absorbed all the energy that the 7 runs which had accumulated that time, and a kind of vortex began to be created in the sky, a sphere of unknown energy. After this, an special wave from the cube caused Kevin's shards to fall around the island, generating zombies around them. The people began to exterminate all the creatures along with their Kevin shards to cleanse their world, but the cube had not yet finished its purpose. It began to crack and spin at high speeds until it finally exploded. This caused all of us, the inhabitants, to be teleported to a dimension called Nexus. Here we could see how Kevin manifested butterfly-shaped energy that by touching it, we were teleported to our island back. Finally, everything was finished. The cube wouldn't bother us. They felt peace and harmony in Loot Lake. Afterwards, an iceberg reached and hit the island, leading it to a winter army. This one belonged to the Ice King, who was sitting in the castle. The iceberg gradually began to unfreeze due to the warm climate characterizing the island. So the Ice King decided to make a spell that would allow him to freeze the whole island of Fortnite. But along with it, he brought the ice zombies that were part of the side effects of his spell. Apparently, he was trying to prevent his castle from unfreezing for nothing in the world, but this wasn't enough. What he wanted to avoid came to pass. His greatest rival, who he held prisoner in his castle, escaped. This being of fire opposite of the Ice King escaped to create his own empire on this island. He reached and left a small gift in his old prison as revenge. Meanwhile, the island's inhabitants completely exterminated the zombies for a second time. The island returned to normal. To celebrate it, they decided to organize a concert at Pleasant Park with a special guest, Marshmallow, which said the following words before finishing his presentation.
I just want to say thank you, Fortnite. Thank you to all the people at Epic.
The prisoner performed a ritual to create his empire. Everything began to shake. There were many earthquakes around the island. Underground was quartzing in different zones until an immense volcano arose from the island because of the prisoner's ritual. Finally, it had settled in and the island had apparently been at peace. Suddenly, a pirate came looking for the treasure was hidden in the island. The Ice King also found out about this and went to look for that treasure too. The prisoner and his henchmen wouldn't be left behind, so they also went after him, but that has no further relevance. Thereafter, the Fortnite government decided to investigate the reason why several objects disappeared from the island. For a strange reason, many of their weapons began to disappear, so they concluded that there was something unusual in this world. Until they reached a loot lake, they excavated the side where a kind of metal circular gate was discovered. Seemingly, this had always been there in front of them, but they didn't notice. Maybe their weapons had been absorbed inside, but there's no way to open the gate. Until one day, the Fortnite government figured out how to do it. Stranger pedestals appeared in different places of the map, and with the people's help, they started hitting it for push them up to Loot Lake. When those pedestals arrived, they were inserted on the gate like a kind of key. Even there was a pedestal that showed through Polar Peak with a lightning and thread of lightnings at the volcano. After all of pedestals were inserted on the gate finally opened. The government of Fortnite with its inhabitants could open this gate. Nevertheless, no one expected it to really be a portal that led us to the Nexus dimension where we had previously been in. People began to choose the weapon they wanted to back, but they didn't realize that it was only a distraction. Someone was letting them retrieve some of their weapons so that they didn't notice what was right here. The 0 point. This orb was created by the floating island with the cube Kevin when created the vortex. Or maybe this orb had been here for a long time. The only person in this dimension Nexus had a duty to care for this immeasurable energy orb, preventing anyone else from taking advantage of it due to its unmeasurable energy inside. This person was a guardian who we will know as Singularity in the future. After this, we were expelled to our dimension, and just upon arrival, the volcano erupted, thus destroying several places on the map. One of those volcanic stones hit the Polar Peak. The inhabitants had to take shelter. Among them, Jonesy and his friend Pilly hid in a bunker. Time passed, and Jonesy had to sacrifice his friend to feed himself. Many years later, finally he was rescued. In the moment that he up and left the bunker, he realized that he was in the future. Apparently, this woman named Singularity helped to rebuild many of the cities that had been affected by the volcano, becoming a hero of our world. That's why a statue was built to commemorate her honor. Peace had returned to the island again, but suddenly an eye appeared at Polar Peak. The egg left by the prisoner had hatched thanks to the radiation from the lightning bolt from the pedestal and thanks to the impact of a volcanic stone there, and over the years that being grew to become a giant monster. He left the Polar Peak, taking the castle with him. This monster named Cactus began to be attracted to a mysterious fort that was on the island. Because of that, at night he began to attack installations which were in Loot Lake for looking forward 0 point. Because of that, Singularity ordered to create a giant robot to defend the 0 point. No one had to realize about the existence of that energy source until the day of the great battle came. Singularity inside her robot Dogus faced off against Cactus in an epic battle. Cactus tried to get the 0 point for him, but Dogus wasn't going to allow it. During the fight, the robot was terribly injured, so he used his last resort. He took the 0 point and used it for strengthening himself. After that, he took the Singularity statue that turns out was a sword. Singularity knew this fight was going to happen happen in the future, so she had prepared this sword for the battle. And finally, Dogus won the battle. After this, the robot with singularity flew to somewhere unknown, but she forgot something at all. The 0 point had been left out in the open. Soon after, the orb became unstable and exploded, and we were teleported to the purple dimension. This was the place where all the dimensions came together. Apparently, in each dimension, the 0 point exploded, which caused all of them to be brought to this place to be later thrown and created a new dimension, the island of Season 10, Chapter 1. This island was composed from all the interdimensional matter that was mixed in the purple dimension thanks to the 0 point. But something was wrong. There were a huge meteor and more interdimensional matter that were going to impact our world, but for some strange reason they were paused in the sky. The visitor of that dimension, realizing that the meteor hadn't fallen yet, decided to investigate what was going on. The last thing that he remembered was he hid inside a capsule before his planet exploded. The meteor he came from was remains of his extinct planet. The visitor planned to come to our world to take refuge since his planet had been destroyed, and this was what happened in the past with the visitor of Season 4, and that's why he knew about the hub rocks. They were part of his planet, but for some reason the meteor of the visitor of this dimension of Season 10 has not impacted, and that is why his investigation started. In the new island, the 0 point was still out in the open and more unstable than ever. It could be exploded at any moment and cause the end of war. The visitor had to avoid it. He couldn't allow this planet to have the same fate as his. Nevertheless, there was a big drawback. That was the Season 10 was a cycle without end. Everything always repeated. The visitor, after so many investigations, became the scientist, and he realized that he was locked in a loop. In addition, because of this island was created by 0 point, it had a side effect that caused the memory loss in its inhabitants, and some could even lose their speech. Due to the loop repetitions, there were different visitors of different dimensions. Sometimes could be a scientist or a woman. 6 of them realized what was happening and formed the 7. Their mission was to create a plan that would free them from the loop and prevent the end of Fortnite. 6 of them recorded the audios to communicate with each other and remind all their investigations progress. This way they would avoid losing their memory. For the plan to work, they had to link all dimensions to the island of Season 10. For this reason, they put reef beacons to modify areas of the map and convert them from another dimension. These devices were powered by the 0 point. With this, they managed to create 6 rifts in the sky, which allowed them to link all those dimensions. However, they needed the help of someone else, from someone who was outside the loop, so that they could get out of these repetitions, avoiding the end of Fortnite. But the only way to find someone outside the loop who will help them would be to travel back in time when the loop wasn't yet created. So they decided to contact the 7th member of the group, the visitor of Season 4, the who had just arrived on this planet, running away his own that exploded. For this, they used the help of Singularity. She, being from the Nexus, had the power to travel through time. She took the tapes and listened to them all in her office. That is why she knew what would happen in the future, and that is why she built the sword and the robot. She handed the audios to the visitor of Season 4, and upon while he was hearing them, he realized his future self from other dimensions needed his help to save this planet. Therefore, the rocket took off in the past to teleport to the future, to the final event of Fortnite. That is why we heard that the rocket set its coordinates towards the 0 point. That means towards the future. future. But what he didn't know was that he caused all this himself due to the rift he left in the sky. In other words, for trying to solve the problem in the future, he caused it himself from the beginning. And Singularity, for defending the 0 point, she left it without any protection and caused the rest of the catastrophes. During the final event, we saw how the 7th and last rift farm and the arrival of the visitor from season 4 crashing into the 0 point, so that the other 6 visitors in their rockets direct the meteor to the orb and thus cause a great explosion. This is how the black hole was created, although this was still part of the plan. What the 7 really wanted to do was prevent that 0 point from exploding by itself and thus setting all, for which they made it explode themselves to create the black hole and then manipulate all the absorbed matter and create a new world, like how the island of season 10 was formed. However, on this occasion they had to make a huge sacrifice, so apparently the visitor of chapter 4 sacrificed himself to impact into the 0 point. Meanwhile, the other 6 escaped from there and teleported to another place. All was absorbed by the black hole, and thanks to the 6 who could eject all matter and create Apollo's world, the Fortnite's island of chapter 2. This was a new world created from the previous world and free to any catastrophe that has occurred on Athena. The 7 managed to create a new world in which 0 point isn't out in the open and rather is sheltered again in the Nexus. The gate of the Nexus must be hidden in some place of the island. Also, the 7 made a nuclear power plant called Kevolution Energy. Exists to work with a strange liquid called Kevin, so that the cube will never cause problems anymore. Moreover, when the 6 created Apollo, they could infiltrate secret agents among the island. In other words, they created Ego. Ego will be the group who will oversee maintaining order and peace on this new island. The 7 had completed their mission: manipulate the matter that they absorbed with the black hole to create a new island without any problems. The only drawback, and what the 7 feared, was that everything they did could attract the attention of people from other worlds, and that was exactly what happened. So Galactus realized that something happened in the other side of the universe. He felt an encircling immeasurable energy that reorganized the matter and created the new island. Galactus felt the power of the 0 point. When the event, the end, was occurred, Galactus was traveling in the space with Thor, who will help to collect enough energy to win the Black Winter, to prevent the end of the reality. Nevertheless, Galactus was distracted by the 0 point and forgot his mission. He abandoned Thor and set out on his journey to Apollo. Thor couldn't allow this. Galactus doesn't possess the 0 point, otherwise it will turn worse than Black Winter. That is why Thor also set out on his journey to Apollo, but he was traveling faster due to this Thunder God ability. He entered the rift and disappeared. All this no one had found out, not even the 7. They believed that the problems were over, and they went to live in peace in a camp on the island. The island of Apollo was in peace and harmony. On this Apollo island, Alter is now as a company that makes bolts and fishing tools. Yet in the shadows, they really are an evil group that smuggles explosive weapons at night. In addition, they also own Slurp Industries, without anyone else knowing. On the other hand, there is Ego, who, in addition to taking care of the island, takes care of the nuclear plant in exchange for weapons and vehicles built by Kevolution Energy. One of those days, Alter was doing Slurp experiments to create more sludge soldiers, but one of these went wrong. This one was expelled without anyone knowing about the pipes leading to the swamp, and that's how a legendary hero named Ripley was born. he was different from the rest. He was blue and good too, so he looked for help from the group of good people on the island to tell them a terrible secret about Slurp. At the same night, an Ego agent had just discovered that a group was trafficking in the docks, and surprisingly, it was Alter, who was impersonating a simple fishing company. She quickly informed this to his Ego friend, who decided to pick up her before Alter called her, and just in that moment Ripley met Cameo and explained that he was different from the evil sludge soldiers and he had information which was important to Ego group. However, at the time Alter noticed the intruders and ordered to pursue them, Ripley and Cameo began to escape and hide while Ego was already on the way to rescue them. It was here the 8th ball from Ego realized that his brother named Scratch had become the evil and was working for Alter. For some strange reason, he ran to the forest and found him, and thus began a battle between them in which the 8th ball won, while his rival ended up decomposed with a terrible infection. Meanwhile, Ripley and Cameo go to reunite with the rest of the Ego team and kept escaping in their boat. This was the moment when Ego discovered a terrible truth. Thanks to the information given by Ripley and the persecution around them, they realized that Alter was pursuing them in Ego's own vehicles, and this is because the scars were created by evolution energy, which means that Alter is the real owner of the nuclear power plant, and the leader of this evil team is a guy named Chaos Agent, who has been controlling everything from the shadows. He is also responsible for the experiments at Slurp, as this industry belongs to him as well. Alter has had great power and control over the Apollo Island, and Ego has recently found out it. It was then that the battle between the two teams began around the island. While Ego was doing their airplane missions, Alter shot them, crushing them to the ground. Chaos and destruction were seen everywhere. There was even a time when Star Wars ships invaded us and started fighting close to us. Some First Order ships fell on the island and we had to eliminate the Imperial soldiers. This didn't last long after all the ships left the island. Nevertheless, the battle between Ego and Alter was still going on. This war lasted a long time and was getting known here, until one day an elite military organization called the Agency arrived on the island, which was established on the central island where they placed their main base of operations. They adopted the same Ego logo to convince us that they are the good guys and that they came to end this war, defeating Alter once and for all. The Agency leader is a special agent named Midas, who, along with his faithful friend Agent Meowscles, came to the island on the yacht to bring peace to this world of Apollo. However, within the Agency there was a group of elite soldiers in which only a few entered and were called ghosts. Among them is Lynx, who we knew from the last chapter. We also see Journey, one of the few people from Ego, who has been recruited to be part of the secret ghost agents, while his other friends have not even found out. At that time, we also found out about the bomber and Drift ended their love story as they cross out their names from a tree. The appearance of special soldiers and the arrival of the Agency coast, Alter created its group of elite soldiers to face Ghost, and they changed their name to Shadow, which is formed by special secret agents who have the mission of ending the Agency. Alter has already disappeared, and now the Chaos Agent is the one who leads Shadow. In the same way, the Ego team has also been discarded, and even the expedition's outposts located in the island have been removed, since it makes no more sense to continue protecting evolution energy because it belongs to the bad guys. Besides that, Ghost is the replacement for Ego. Since that moment, the war on Apollo Island had taken a different course. Now it had become a battle between special agencies. On the one hand, hand, we had the Midas leader with his ghost agents, while in the other hand, we had the Chaos agent with his shadow team. But what he didn't know is that Billy is a double agent who worked for Ghost, spying and impersonating as a shadow agent. That's why we saw him in meetings with Midas, in addition to Brutus, who also worked spying on the Chaos agent. Among the Ghost agents, we also had the favorite anti-hero of many, called Deadpool, who at the same time was very close friend to Agent Billy, and was part of this battle to end Shadow's evil team. At that moment, something unexpected also happened. A strange planet called Astroworld arrived on the island, and with it, a giant Travis Scott that gave us a great concert and told us the following words. Well, everything we saw in that concert was maybe only part of our imagination, due to a strange smoke that we breathed at first. Going back to the story of Ghost and Shadow, there was something Midas was hiding. He had come to the Apollo Island to bring peace, but maybe the way he planned to do it was not the best one. So he will do it using some devices called Doomsday, which would represent a very great danger for Apollo. That's why several Ghost agents had decided to leave the agency and join Shadow's team. They knew that although the Chaos agent was not one of the good ones, he will be the one who will help them to stop Midas' evil plan. His plan consisted of gathering important objects from the island to take them to Doomsday devices. Among these objects were the masks of different characters from the story of Fortnite. Besides that, Midas obtained the Chaos Agent mask that he turned into gold to be used soon in his evil plan. The Shadow leader had now been locked in the Shark prison for not stopping the Midas plan. The Doomsday device also required a Gilded Scepter, which Midas could get by unearthing the corpse of his ancestor, King Midas. But this unintentionally caused Oro to come back to life. Midas already had all the objects ready and the machine built. However, he needed a large amount of energy to activate it. This is why, after having looked up the Chaos agent in prison, he stole a substance from his Evolution Energy nuclear plant to store it in gates underwater. That liquid reached the device through the pipes and provided enough power to completely recharge the machine. Now everything was ready to activate the Doomsday device. But what was the goal of doing all this? What would this machine do? Well, it all goes back to the time when Midas arrived on the island Apollo. He had met a girl named Jules, the engineer, who despite belonging to the opposite side didn't prevent the two from falling in love and becoming a couple. However, their happiness wouldn't last forever, until one day, for some unknown reason, the engineer get caught in the Fortnite storm, thus causing her to lose life. This was a hard blow to Midas, and that was the moment that he swore that he would take revenge. In addition, there was still the possibility that Jules is still alive, but to rescue her, Midas had to destroy the storm. Thus, he could bring his beloved back and at the same time prevent the storm from hurting someone else. However, everyone on the island knew that if someone tried to face the storm, it could cause great catastrophes to come to this world. But Midas didn't care about the consequences. He wanted to rescue Jules at any cost. That is why his agents betrayed him, because they couldn't allow Midas to bring Apollo the end of the world. Midas already had his device and his special suit ready to face the storm. Then the big day arrived. The Shadow team, now led by Brutus, came to the agency to try to convince Midas not to activate the device, but the Ghost leader was not going to back down. The device was activated. This caused the agency to blow up in 1,000 pieces. The device soared into the sky and began to unleash unleashed all its energy to battle the storm. The device fired its rays and using its maximum power, it achieved to clear the storm of the Apollo world. Everything was more colorful and the island was at peace. But it was at the moment that we, the inhabitants of the island, were teleported to another place. Apparently, the great battle between the device and the storm made us travel to a strange office. That place looked like a branch of the Ghost Agency, but in reality, it was a secret organization from another world. There we could see a guy named Agent John Jones talking on the phone with his boss, explaining what was happening in Apollo, but they realized that something was wrong. The storm wasn't a simple storm, but it was linked to the loop, although we had already gotten rid of the loop when the Apollo world was created. The storm was still linked to it apparently. That's why the storm reacted unexpectedly when the device attacked it. It was at this time that we teleported back and we were able to see a huge tsunami that came to Apollo. Apparently the Fortnite storm had mutated and caused a tsunami. Here was again we were transported to the office and came face to face with Agent Jonesy. He was surprised to see us and even more amazed that we could understand it. Apparently the inhabitants of Apollo cannot speak normally. They only emit strange murmurs. This is due to the side effect the Apollo world has caused since it was created by the zero-point explosion, as happened on the island of Season 10. On Apollo, the inhabitants lose their memory and cannot speak normally, in addition to the fact that the storm was still linked to the loop. After this encounter with Agent Jonesy, we were teleported back to the island. The tsunami surrounded Apollo and it was only a matter of time before the worst happened. The island was completely flooded. Chaos and destruction have broken out throughout this world. People have lost their homes and now fight each other to survive and get food. Midas and the agency seem that we're able to disconnect the storm from the loop. However, they caused another problem, and now is that rifts constantly appear in the sky and beings from another world fall to steal and attack us. Midas has failed. Not only failed to beat the storm, but also caused a greater catastrophe to come to Apollo. And it is for this reason that all the inhabitants of the island now hate ghosts, because they blame them for causing the flood and causing the loss of their homes. However, it seems that the Midas plan to some extent worked. Well, Engineer Jules has been saved. Now she is safe and sound in the authority. That is the new regime that dominates the world. Shadow, led by Brutus, who now controls the island of Apollo, and his right hand is the engineer Jules, who was the authority. Midas managed to save Jules, but she despises him, as she disagrees that he brought all these catastrophes just to save her. Jules never wants to see Midas again. This is why we see him sad and sorry for everything he did. But the problems don't end here, since right after, Midas was killed by a shark. Midas was the one who brought the tsunami to this world, and along with this, the sharks also came to Apollo. Midas brought about his own ending. When this happened, Meowscles was surfing with the shark, but didn't even care to see his old friend get eaten. Along with this flood also came Aquaman, as he felt like he was at home. Meowscles married with Lynx, and they had a son named Kid, and all together now live in Catty Corner, and even have their gas station business. Well, their life as agents has been left behind. Ghost has still been expelled from the island. One of those days, we received the arrival of Captain America. For some reason, he had come to the island, but this wasn't the first time that something from Mars Marvel had arrived in Fortnite. Well, on the previous island there was a moment when the Infinity Gauntlet arrived in Athena world, and then a year later Thanos returned with his army and the powers of Avengers also appeared, but they didn't last long on the island and we hadn't heard from Marvel characters other than Deadpool. Days after Captain America arrived on the flooded Apollo Island, a spaceship from another world fell and crashed beneath the depths of the flood. From there, Siona managed to get out and now she began to explore this new world. But inside, his companion, the ancient astronaut, was trapped. They had to wait for the flood in the Apollo world to subside little by little to finally be able to repair their spaceship and take off back to their planet. Although apparently they didn't go very far and returned to the Apollo Island. After that, a strange rift appeared in the sky, and from there came an unknown being. Thor, the god of thunder, has just arrived on the Apollo Island. As soon as he arrived, he met Bright Bomber and Kid. He tried to talk to them, but they didn't seem to understand him, and suddenly Apollo's inhabitants attacked him. Jonesy and the others couldn't understand what Thor was saying due to the island after effects, and thought he was an enemy intruder, for which Thor had to defend himself and start fighting with them. However, Thor suddenly dropped his hammer and created a crater in the ground. Thor was losing his memories. He began to feel how the island erased his memories until he realized that Galactus was approaching in the distance in the sky. So he asked Steve for help to bring reinforcements. From different dimensions they were recruiting Marvel heroes to bring them to Apollo through the Bifrost. Nobody understood what was happening. They started singing up and going to fight until Thor stopped them and showed them the true threat. Galactus is approaching the island and everyone will have to unite to fight him. Marvel heroes have to recover their memories and also their powers to prepare for the arrival of Galactus. But they weren't the only thing that came from the Marvel dimension, but also different locations of different heroes appeared on the island. Iron Man learned from all of this and decided to create a plan to defend ourselves against Galactus. He placed some devices around the map that served to remove this terrain from his dimension to Apollo. Tony Stark brought his entire industry and everything he needed for his plan. He began modifying the battle bosses and equipping them with gamma cell nuclei. Meanwhile, Galactus could be seen in the sky approaching little by little. On the other hand, Shadow's team had left the island and dismantled the authority due to the Brutus disbanding the team, and the only two henchmen that were left from Ghost and Shadow, instead of fighting, they became great friends and are walking around the island of Fortnite. Suddenly, witches came to Apollo and did a ritual to bring someone back from the dead. Midas has revived and began to spread his army of ghosts across the island to fulfill his revenge. But the inhabitants managed to kill them all and the shadow Midas disappeared. Although then he will return again with a suit that keeps him alive with the Joker. This battle against Ghost was only a training, as the real threat was approaching from the sky. Galactus has already arrived in our world and is now emerging from the depths of the ocean. He walked over to us and told us to stand aside. The Apollo's inhabitants and the Marvel's hero waited for Galactus from the helicarrier to fight him. But Galactus, with a single punch, pushed us away. Luckily, at that moment, Iron Man appeared and gave us a jetpack so we could fly. Galactus reached his hand up to the island and began to absorb something. The 0 point has been removed. All this time, he has been hiding under the agency. In the center of the island, Galactus began to absorb all the energy from the 0 point. It was about to devour it completely, and If it continued like this, it would cause a new black hole. But suddenly we were teleported to the Nexus dimension. Apparently, Iron Man managed to hack the loop we were in. That is, he hacked our world and made our battle against Galactus continue on the Nexus, so that the island isn't so affected. Thanks to this hack, Iron Man also managed to clone the battle boss millions of times, and thus everything was ready to start the Nexus war. Our mission was to drive these battle bosses to the Galactus, because they were actually car bombs loaded with gamma cells. We flew towards Galactus and fired lasers at the drones he had launched. Meanwhile, Galactus continued to absorb the 0 point that he had in his hands. It was doing so much damage to the orb that we were teleported to outer space. Galactus saw us closely and threw a punch toward us, but suddenly Thor appeared and helped us avoid the blow. Then Wolverine arrived, and with his claws he cleared the way, destroying the drone. In this way we managed to approach Galactus face to face, and he began to observe us with his mouth to get rid of us to eat us. But what Galactus didn't know is that this was all part of Iron Man's plan. All of us got off the buses, and floating in the space we saw how Galactus consumed the buses and they began to explode inside him. This caused the Devourer of Worlds to release green energy from its body and be thrown backwards. A rift formed in space that absorbed Galactus and sent him back where he came from, that is, to the other end of the galaxy. With this, all the Marvel heroes seized the opportunity and returned to their role as well. But this is not all. This battle against Galactus provoked something else, and is that Agent John Jones was knocked out on the ground. Apparently, the Nexus war caused all dimensions to be affected. In other words, it caused an earthquake at Agent Jones' office. John Jones got up and answered the call from his boss, who told him that he should enter the loop again to fix the 0 point that was exposed, and thus prevent anyone from escaping the loop. Apparently, this secret organization is called the Imagined Order, and its mission is to keep all the inhabitants of Apollo trapped in the loop, that is, trapped on the island of Fortnite. All this time, they have been watching us. From these offices, they have seen all the Fortnite events, such as the Midas event and the Galactus event. For some reason, the Imagined Order wants to keep us inside the loop, since perhaps if someone escapes, it could cause catastrophes in other dimensions. This is why Agent John Jones is ordered to enter the world of Fortnite again. But he is not so in agreement with this idea, since each time Agent Jones enters the loop, a new copy of him is created. This is why in Fortnite there are many Jones skins, because they have all been copies that have been generated every time John Jones enters the loop. But he still have to do it to protect his world. Agent Jonesy grabs his backpack and heads to his mission. However, he couldn't hear the warning of his boss, who told him not to attract the attention of the Seven. That is, the Imagined Order knows that the Seven are the group that has been trying to escape the loop for a long time, and possibly the Seven also knows of the existence of the Imagined Order. That is why Agent John Jones must be careful and avoid running into them. The earthquake continues, and everyone runs for their lives, while John Jones enters a mysterious room with a strange machine called the Bridge. This is the entrance that connects the John Jones dimension with the world of Fortnite. That is, it is the entrance to the loop. In this way, Agent John Jones has arrived in the Apollo world. But he didn't come alone. He brought with him the best hunters of all realities. Apparently, Agent Jones's job in the Imagined Order is to travel to different dimensions known as realities, and thus recruit the best bounty hunters of each of them. This is why in his office we saw the pictures of his journeys between dimensions. Perhaps the mission of the the imagined order is to keep all realities in order, and to do so they cannot allow anyone to escape from the Fortnite Island loop. This is why Agent John Jones brought in the hunters, to cause chaos on the island and thus keep the inhabitants distracted so that they don't approach the 0 point that is exposed. And this is how we get to Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 5. Agent John Jones brought in hunters like the Mandalorian, Lexa, Mancake and many more. But this was only the beginning, because over the days he visited more realities and recruited more hunters to bring them to Apollo. This is how Kratos, the Master Chief, the Predator, the Alien, Terminator, Black Panther and many more arrived. However, because it brought many hunters, it caused the 0 point to be more unstable, since when he recruited new hunters, he used his wearable Rift device to teleport them to the world Apollo. This device made the 0 point emit a beam of energy and generate an interdimensional portal that connects other realities with the dimension of Fortnite. In addition to Agent John Jones and the hunters, the soldiers of the imagined order also arrived at Fortnite, the same ones we saw running in the office. Now, these soldiers have created underground bases on the Apollo Island, and every so often they come to the surface to attack everyone around them. That is, they help to continue causing chaos. Although sometimes these elevators leave the henchmen of Ghost and Shadow that are still alive and are lost on the island. The rest of the hunters have become bounty hunters, and even one of them managed to capture the same Philly and was cryogenized by the Mandalorian. Meanwhile, the inhabitants of Apollo survived as best they could. Some began to trade with each other in gold in exchange for weapons or jobs to eliminate other subjects. But there was someone who knew what was really going on, and it's Bunker Jonesy. He is a hermit who has gone to live in one of the corners of the island, and although he seems to be crazy, he's actually quite right about what he talks about. Bunker Jonesy is the first copy that originated from Agent John Jones when he first entered the loop. He's the one who looked at himself in the bunker with Pili when the volcano erupted in Chapter 1. Because of this Jonesy has knowledge of the loop, 0 point and the imagined order. He may be the key to escaping the loop. The 0 point is more unstable than ever due to all the portals that Agent John Jones has created. This is why now every so often the 0 point makes a small explosion and emits a pulse of energy. Around the 0 point, a circular wave has formed that distorts reality, and in a few days the 0 point may finally explode and something terrible happens in Fortnite. There are only a few days left until Season 5 ends and Season 6 begins. We will witness the event Zero Crisis Final, in which we will see the final mission of Agent John Jones that will transform reality as we know it. The 0 point is coming to an end. It has become more unstable. At any moment it will explode and cause the end of the world. Well, this has been my theory of the entire Fortnite story summarized that has passed from the beginning until the day I am uploading this video. In the next video, I will explain the initial cinematic of the Season 6 and the final event of 0 point. So I recommend you subscribe my channel and activate the bell to be the first to see that video. If you are already subscribed, you will be participating in the draw for the 5,000 V-Bucks. Don't forget that the giveaway link will be in the description. I am George Isaac 115. See you in the next video, guys. Greetings to all and goodbye.